Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Victor if you are new here, and today I'm going to show you exactly how I got these shots. So this was a really fun shoot for me, and I've been wanting to work with my friend India for a very long time now. She is a very talented model. You could find her IG here. And what I loved about this was we shot over the course of 2 hours and knocked out 6 different lighting setups. Let's get into the technical side of what gear I used to get this done. So for starters, I shoot with my camera tethered into CaptureOne during all my photo shoots. Reason being is CaptureOne is amazing. I've actually moved completely away from Lightroom because of it. I think the color grading is better. I think the masks are better. The overall user experience is better. So if you're unfamiliar with CaptureOne, get familiar. Next up is my camera of choice, which is the Sony A7iv IV. It is reliable, fast autofocused, and high resolution. I don't need much more than that. It is the perfect camera for me on a photo shoot. Then for lenses, I shot with 3. I used my Sony 16-35 f2.8G Master 2, my Tamron 35-150 f2.2.8, my Sigma 85 f1.4. These are like my favorite 3 lenses to use on a photo shoot, and just kind of in general, even though the 35-50 is really heavy, they just cover all my focal lengths and allow me to kind of get as wide as I need to and as close as I need to. Now for lighting, I did something interesting. I actually used a mix of constant lights and strobes. For my constant lights, I used my Aputure 600C and my Amaran 300C, both providing enough output for the photos that I wanted while maintaining a light, easy functional balance. And then for my strobes, I used 2 Godox AD400 Pros. These are my go-to strobes for most of my photo shoots. Both carry their pros and cons. I think for me, the pro of using constant lighting, you could really dial in your image before shooting. Whereas with strobes, you get more power output, but you're not going to see the final image until you've hit the shutter. So pro cons, you could trade off time for power or power for time. But if you get good at both, it's going to be pretty negligible. The last piece to all of this before we get into the actual setups is lighting modifiers. So for this, I used a 16-inch beauty dish, a 7-foot umbrella, 42-inch curve reflector, a snoot, the Amaran Spotlight 19 degree. All these lighting modifiers really ensure that I can get the final image that I wanted by sculpting light. But that's it for gear. So now we can move into the lighting setups. I'm going to turn on my iPad and we're going to switch screens here so you guys can see exactly how I did all my light placement. Okay, so I already pre-drew out all these diagrams so you guys didn't see me drawing on screen horribly. So we'll just look at my horrible drawings together. So this is the first lighting setup, and this was a full body kind of campaigny fashion look. So for me, what was really important was I wanted to get some sort of hard light on her face and create some really nice butterfly lighting under her chin. If we look at this setup, I actually used the 8400 as my key light with the 16-inch beauty dish. Now this was placed directly in front of her, raised up, tilted down at a 45. The reason being is I wanted to kind of get some of this down shadow play that you're seeing here to really just add some character behind her while also creating some really nice specular highlights on her forehead, her nose. And then for my fill light on this, I used another 8400 with a snoot. Now I used a snoot with the grid because I really wanted this light to only hit the edge of her hair and catch her cheek. So if we go back and particularly look at this shot, you can see the fill light hitting her forehead right there. Doesn't add much, but it adds just enough to create a little bit of separation from that background and make sure there weren't too many shadows falling on her face, because my focus of the shadow was right under her chin. This was a very easy setup, and you could see my settings here. I shot f8, 1/250 of shutter speed at 160 ISO. Moving into the second setup, it's actually very similar. I just added one thing. Here's the second setup. So as you can see, everything is actually the same, except I added the 42-inch curved reflector right below her. This is a classic maneuver for headshots because we want to fill in some of that shadow so it's not so dark and not so punchy. But what it did for me was also add really nice catch lights in her eyes. You could kind of just see this curve right here, and then the beauty dish right on top. Super nice catch light, really brightens up the eyes, adds some brilliance. See how soft the shadow is right here? There's no hard lines, there's no nothing, but we're getting really good cheek definition, shape on the nose, eyebrows look very strong and powerful. And again, that fill light is just whoop, adding little touches, making sure that nothing is falling too far into the shadows. Again, didn't change anything on my settings. F8, 250 shutter speed, 160 ISO. Moving into a whole new lighting setup number 3. Pardon my crude drawing here, but this was a one light setup. I used my Amaran 300C plus the Amaran Spotlight 19-degree attachment with the iris control because I really wanted to make sure I can control how big the circle was. But this is on a C stand, which I could show you right here. And this was just boomed directly over India's head. This was just to make sure that I got a perfect circle around her, nothing skewed, no weird angles. And what was great was this actually gave me 2 looks. You can see these 2 right here are different angles. This first one over here, I was on a ladder shooting from directly overhead. And then these 2, same exact lighting setup, but what I did was I had her sit up and I used some atmospheric haze to kind of create a godly, ethereal kind of vibe. You can see the light just kind of peeking down towards her. And I loved the shape that she decided to use with her hands. It was like a very soft, reaching, like a longing shape. And to me, it just created something beautiful, like very isolating but wanting more. So this was fun. Same exact lighting setup, 2 different angles, got me completely different vibes. That's something to note. Like you could just change your angle and whole setup could be very different. For this 4th lighting setup, again, something very simple, but providing a lot of powerful imagery. So I used the AD400 as my key light, and I used my 7-foot umbrella to be her background. The reason being is because it's a silver parabolic umbrella. It's going to bounce a ton of light out and just create a perfect silhouette. I had that going, and you could see I had India standing roughly about 8 feet from the background. And this was because I needed to create some separation as I shot on a longer lens to just compress her directly onto the umbrella. That was really important for this shot. You can see I shot f14, 500 shutter speed, 125 ISO, one simple, easy lighting setup. And I think the effect is great because you get a little bit of bleed into her hair or onto her shirt here where you don't fully lose her. Like there's elements, it makes you want to see more. I don't know. I just thought this was a really fun, easy way to do a silhouette. Pretty manageable. You could honestly do the same thing through like a bed sheet as if you don't have a 7-foot umbrella. But that is lighting setup number 4. Again, we're aiming for simplicity here. Nothing complicated. Let's go to 5. Lighting setup number 5, again, one light setup. I was using my 600C with the Amaran Spotlight 19-degree attachment plus gobos or the iris attachment. Now, I just had the light set up on a C stand directly left of me, pointed towards her. This kind of created a little bit of a shift in the focus, which was cool. You can kind of see it in this image, like right here, the focus is softer than right here. But to me, it's not important. It kind of looks like the sun is moving through at a different angle. It's kind of nice. And then for the circle, you can't tell enough. It's not lopsided where it's going to be distracting. But the whole point was that I wanted to create texture on her. I really wanted to play, and this is actually one of my favorite shots because you can see her eyes, her lips, things you wouldn't be able to see if they were hidden in the shadow. And then these felt a little bit like Michael Jackson-y. It was kind of fun, like with the blazer, the movement. She's also a dancer, an incredible dancer. We just played with movement. If we couldn't think of a great pose, it was like, you know what, just move a little bit and then we'll just snap as we go. And that led to some of these shots. The hands in the pocket, kind of moving, grooving. That kind of thing will always help on a shoot to loosen up the model. Everyone feels better. Play some good music. Easy lighting setup, f5.6, 200 shutter speed, 640 ISO. Realistically, I probably could have brought that down if I cranked up the Aputure 600C more, but it's fine. And for what it's worth, you can fix a lot of that in editing. So that's it for lighting setup 5. But now we can move on to my favorite setup, which was setup number 6. So setup number 6 had to be my favorite. This was also the setup where I wish I had V flats, and I'll explain why in a second. I did kind of draw it here. You can see it. For me, this was a really, really fun play into how soft can we make light. So I used the AD400 as my key and only source of light and the 7-foot umbrella attachment. What I did was I basically put the umbrella directly on India. So she was maybe 3 feet from the umbrella in the clean unedited shots. So the benefit to putting the umbrella about 3 feet away from India was that you get these really, really nice soft shadows, like this cascading light across her facial features, anything like that, even the soft details in her jacket or her fingers. You can just see how the light is moving across her in such a soft gradient, and the reason is proximity. If I had that light further away, their shadows would be harder, even though there's diffusion on the umbrella. But since there is diffusion and I put it right up against her, super clean image, super nice. Now, what I was saying was, I wish I had a V flat, because I would have definitely used the white side of the V flat to bounce out some light this way and create better texture. Like, to me, this is a little bit too dark on her on like the left hand side. Now you can fix some of it in editing, but then the problem is it starts lifting up the whole image unless you start doing some very specific things. For what it's worth, I like how contrasty the images are, but I do wish that I had a V flat in there just to really emphasize any other details, because she has like really fun curly hair. So that's that. But again, very easy f8, 250 shutter speed, 100 ISO. Playing into it, have fun on your shoots. Like, really, again, play music, converse with your model, really figure out if they have an image, if there's a mood they want to go for. Just work together to make the images perfect. That is it, guys. That is how I did all these lighting setups. I hope you learned something. If you did, amazing. Let me know what you did in the comments. I want to keep trying to do little things like this, because to me they're really important, and it's things that I want to see more of too in the world. I love seeing how creators break down their shoots and how things evolve. So many thanks to you all. Go out there, create something beautiful, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.